Hey everyone, welcome back to Vibes and Vines. I'm Kira Montalasi, a plant mother and a music lover, and today I am here to discuss watering schedules, and then I'll give you some tips and tricks that I use for my babies so you can kind of tweak it and apply it to yours. Before I get started, I did want to make a quick disclaimer and say that your watering schedule is going to be completely determined by your environment, both inside and outside of your house. So even though you may hear some dope ass advice from me, please don't take it and run with it. That goes for any other plant influencer. Just take what you dig, what you're interested in, tweak it a little bit, and then apply it to your own. Also, the type of soil you're going to be using is going to play a huge factor, but I'll get to that towards the end of the video. Thank you to everyone who subscribed, liked, shared any of my videos, commented. In this video, I have broken things down into 2 to 3 different areas. The first is observation, second is application, and the third are a few tips and tricks I have for you towards the end where I talk about soil. But first, we're going to look at it from an observational standpoint, and that's where the V.I.Ps come into play. The V being visual cues, I being intuitive clues, and the P being physical cues. And I feel like this will be hella easy. I'm a fan of acronyms. So if you are, then you're going to have a swell old time, and I feel like it's really easy. Instead of looking at a plant and thinking about how much you have to conquer, it makes it real easy to have a quick thing that you know you can go to, that you know you're going to memorize, so you don't kind of freak yourself out. Because sometimes it can be a little daunting once you have a certain amount of plants, so trying to make it as easy and digestible as possible. Let's get into V, which is visual cues. So visual cues are dope for a few reasons. The first one being, if you're not trying to get dirty, if you're not trying to get your nails dirty, perfect opportunity. Also, it's just good to get to know your plants. So one of the first points in visual cues is going to be moisture retention. And moisture retention just basically means how much moisture is currently in your pot. And let me grab a plant so it makes it a little bit easier to visualize while I talk about this. So I'm gonna take Clear, and she's gonna spill a little bit, but it's okay because I can vacuum afterwards. So when we're talking moisture retention, if you can see it right there, at least half of the soil right here is moist. I need to like water it more evenly, but half of it is. So that's good. That means it does not need to be watered. It's good to go. But let's say if only this part, only a quarter of it was damp, as you can see, then I need to give it a good water and a good soaking through. This is also a good opportunity to see where you may have watered something. You know what? I'm gonna let that go. I'm practicing and just letting stuff go. So I'm gonna stick a little bit of soil into this. So practicing patience and watering schedules, both in one. If 3/4 of it is dry, that's when you're going to need to water it all the way through. Give it a good soaking. Don't let it sit in the water, but just let it run through and give it a good old time. Quick refresher. How I like to compare this to human beings is by thinking, if I only have like a little bit of water, it's been kind of sitting in my room for a little bit. Sure, I can drink it. Sure, it's going to nourish me for a tiny bit, but I could also go downstairs, get me some nice, fresh filtered water with some ice and quench my thirst. So that's kind of a good comparison. You can survive off of it, but in order to thrive, you're going to need to go downstairs and get some new water. Another visual cue is going to be soil shrinkage from the side. And I'll take an example I have because I did water all the plants in my room fairly recently, but I'll show you either somewhere on the screen. But soil shrinkage is going to be when the soil shrinks from the outside of the pot and kind of goes inwards. If you've been a plant parent for a while, you've probably seen this already, but that's the first cue that's like, okay, this plant needs to be watered. Another visual cue is going to be what I call the wrinkle effect, and that is going to be more common in plants with thicker leaves, so like Hoyas, succulents, any kind of rubber plant, stuff like that. But they're going to start to wrinkle, very similar to when you're in the shower, the bath too long, the pool too long. Your fingers start to look like the chocolate old lady from SpongeBob.
You just can't wait for me to die, can you?
That's a point where you're like, okay, this plant needs to be watered. Now we are on to the next letter in the acronym, which is I for intuitive clues. And when I'm talking about intuitive clues, I'm not talking about you needing to get in this mind state and really connect with the plants.
The power within. The power within.
I'm literally just talking about once you start to establish a routine, then it's going to start to become muscle memory, and then you're going to be able to be like, okay, wait, this, I haven't paid attention to this for a while. A good point to start with intuitive clues is considering your environment. What type of airflow are you getting in your house? Is your house more humid? Do you leave the door open? Does the wind come through your house more? What kind of light is it getting? Because if you do have a cross breeze going, if you love it like I do, I live in a very, very windy area. I'm elevated. I'm in the valleys of Southern California. So I am going to need to water my plants way more than somebody that's, let's say, in mid-city. One of my best friends lives in mid-city, and the city air has more smog in it, so she has more like a steady environment, so she can sustain plants like calatheas and stuff like that, which your girl doesn't even try to do that over here. I've tried a few times and it's just been sad news bears for those plants. But just stuff like that. And then light is another thing to consider 100%, because if you have a plant that's getting less light, you know, in the back of your head, you're going to need to water it less because there's not a light source to put heat on it to help the water evaporate quicker. And vice versa, if you have a plant that's getting a lot of sun, you know you're going to need to water it more in the back of your head because more sunlight's getting on it, which means more water is evaporating quicker. Another point that's really good to build your intuition is to document just a tiny bit, even if it's just a voice memo. I know your girl can get a little bit lazy with that too. So just write something down real quick in your notes, make a voice memo. It takes 30 days to create a habit, so just start doing that for a couple weeks. Doesn't take too long. But then, like I said, it's not just intuition, tuning in, meditating. It is really about establishing a routine. So once you start writing that down, it's going to create a muscle memory, and then you're just going to kind of get to know. You're just going to start to glance at it and be like, okay, honey, the VIPs are telling me that you need some TLC. Look at me. I'm rhyming. It's really similar to like when you know somebody so well to the point you can tell when they're getting hungry, when they're about to get angry, when they get tired, what their eyes look like when they need some sleep. Same thing. It's really, really simple. It's not anything special. And then the last part of my favorite acronym, the VIPs, is going to be the P. So that is going to be physical cues. A really common point in physical cues are going to be like the aesthetics of the leaves. And I didn't put this in the visual cues as much because this is going to be a little bit more hands-on. So a really commonplace thing that a lot of plant people get confused on is the yellowing of leaves. So people typically associate yellow leaves with, okay, it's being overwatered. And that is not the case at all. Yellow leaves can be anything ranging from underwatering, overwatering, and a fungal issue inside of the soil. So let's say, boom, I see a yellow leaf. I'm going to take my finger, I'm going to put it down to the second to like third knuckle, stick it in there. If you see that it is bone dry, then you're going to know that, okay, this plant needs some water. And then vice versa. So if you see a yellow leaf, boom, stick your finger in, you see that it's wet, then you know that, okay, let me back off a little bit, doesn't need to be watered. Another point in physical cues is going to be the weight of your plant. So it's a really good rule to, before you water your plant, pick up your plant, see how much it weighs so you can kind of get a gauge. And then after you water it, pick it up and then see how much it weighs. This is another one of those things like intuitive clues where the more and more you do it, the more and more you're kind of going to get into with your plants. It really takes time, care, and attention. So none of the stuff I'm saying you're going to get overnight. It's really just trial and error. But I really feel like an acronym like VIPs is going to be really, really dope to think of. So it doesn't feel as overwhelming. Now I'm going to talk about soil types because I did mention it earlier because they're very important in your watering schedule. So a looser draining mix is going to go through water way faster. Have a more dense potting soil, that means you're going to need to water it less because it's going to really hold on to the moisture. Now I'm going to take y'all along with me to my kitchen sink to help show you some techniques, because everything I've talked about thus far has been very observational, and now I'm going to get into the application portion of the watering just so you can get a good handle of what I'm talking about. So welcome to my kitchen, and now I'm going to be demonstrating some top watering and some bottom watering techniques. Right here, what I got is I have a watering can that I let sit out overnight, and then I got my money tree plant and my begonia maculata. And what I'm going to do to demonstrate bottom watering is pour some of this in here, and then with the rest, I can use for top watering that's left in here. And you can see right here, honestly, where I went wrong with this. I know on my Instagram, I did write about how unfiltered water or water straight at the top can lead to brown crispy edges, as well as some brown spots on here. So I messed up with my own rule.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
So that's why I am going to take Dots and set her in here. And what's going to happen is the terracotta, as well as her, Dot, is going to absorb the water. But what's good about bottom watering is that she's only gonna take what she needs. I'm going to take my watering can and give it a nice even, and you see it's immediately draining out the bottom. You don't want it to take more than 15 seconds to run through your pot. I do top watering for plants that don't have anything that shouldn't be watered, like at the top, like, you know, ferns that I touched on before. Ferns have a center that can't get damp, or else the whole plant will get root rot and destroyed. But plants like money trees, they're really able to withstand a thorough watering. And I'm back like almost an hour later, and you see the color differentiation. So this is, I can't talk, differentiation. So this is all absorbed up here. And then if I double check and stick it in here, it's letting me know, my finger in here, it's letting me know that it is getting up there. It's not just a pop. With all that being said and demonstrated, thank you so much for coming back to Vibes and Vines another time. If you haven't already, please check out my videos, and I will see y'all in my next episode, which is going to be Music of the Week, episode 3. So I'll see you guys then, and have a good week.